property should be frozen or seized in the interim as investigations take place, so that the moment they are found culpable and the course of justice takes course, then their property, if it's a question of restitution, is used to get that money back to the coffers of government. That's one thing we should do. And so that's why I think Mheshimiwa failing to actually be as stern as he has been on matters of opposition, to be as stern and critical also to government. Because we know very well that the government of the day, with all the instruments of power, needs to make sure that good governance practices are considered.
Okay, but can I offer a solution?
Yes,
and you know,
Irungi is the next issue that I'd like us to talk about.
Yeah, you know, Irungi is a bright lawyer. And my suggestion is, and he's got about 1.5 years before the people in Kero again take a decision on him, why can't he introduce a bill in the National Assembly to make the corruption courts work for 24 hours? so as to avoid these cases of adjournments and cases taking so long. So that he introduces a bill in Parliament as a matter of urgency. And this he can caucus with these Jubilee members of Parliament outside discussing the merger. So that we have these corruption courts working 24 hours. That way, then it's easy to prosecute and do all these investigations and ensure that if you've been accused of corruption, there's no need to have an adjournment. You have a judge coming to work at 4 in the evening till 4 in the morning.
All right, that is one that maybe would be over time. But now, given the institutions that we have in place, what would you offer as a solution?
For me, I would, if I were at a State House today, I would call Mr. Keriako Tobiko, Mr. Kinusi, and Ndegwa Muhoro, and look at them in the eye and lose my cool. Jump on top of tables and tell them that you guys are letting down the nation. And for some reason, Kenya really will love litigation and we love laws. We should make it very expensive for anybody who works at the anti-corruption agency or investigations to do sloppy work. Because I think that's the bond of contention. Today we may blame the judiciary, but the work of the magistrate or a judge is not to do investigations, is not to do prosecution. He will sit at these chambers and he may know that dismas are stolen. But if there is no evidence, it's going to let you free. Right. If a lawyer comes and says, I want an adjournment, they look at their diaries, the very complicated diaries, and give you a date. But now if you make it 24 hours, but like for instance, the cases where there is a very solid evidence. I keep on saying that if you have one governor today in a prison in Shimolatewa, corruption in Kenya will come to an end.
Okay. Coming to you, Rungo, on something else now. This is you're a lawyer, and we've seen the executive, as it were, go round in circles when it comes to the tribunal that was being formed for investigating allegations against Justice Tunoi, which of course deals a huge blow when it comes to Kenyans looking at the executive wondering who are their advisors. 14 days was given for the tribunal to be formed, and it was formed just a day before. Then there was still issues going with who's going to chair. Was it Sherrod Rao? Then it was changed. Then he's back on. What is going on?
Well, in my own opinion, you cannot blame the advice of the president. The reason being, the issues which are before Uhuru Kenyatta concerning Mr. Tunoi, they are not really settled in law. They are not settled. You can interpret them both ways. Why do I say so? One, there is the issue as to whether Mr. Tunoi is a judge or not. It is not clear as to whether he is still a judge. So that therefore you can then proceed. To constitute a tribunal as against him. Why do I say so? One, we do have a high court judgment that has been pronounced that he is not a judge and he ought to have retired. That judgment has not been vacated. It is true, we do have a stay of that judgment. But you see, a stay has nothing per se to do with the content of the judgment. A stay is a stay of execution of that order, but that order is still there. So, strictly speaking, one can interpret, indeed, this guy is not a judge. Therefore, why do you form a tribunal against him?
Wow. But Mike, probably, but Mike, I think probably the overriding question is, what serves the public interest? Is it that, kind of...
No. I mean, excuse me. Let me answer that question. When it comes to law, the issue of public interest, fine, it is there. But yeah, you have to follow the law. If the law, by the way, conflicts with the so-called public interest, which, by the way, is very amorphous concept. because you have not done what is called a public opinion poll to know whether Kenyans indeed, they want to know you out or
As a good lawyer,
let me hear from Judge.
as a good lawyer,
You know.
he should know the better from, in fact, the very words of Lord Camden, that if a matter or an issue is not expressly in law, then it is not a question to be considered as a law. It is in our laws, it is in the Constitution about the question of the retirement of a judge. It is clear, right? And I know he does. The other thing is this. Look at our very able Attorney General. Sits in the JSC. The Attorney General is the advisor to government. Now, you look at it that the JSC sat and recommended the formation of a tribunal. The Attorney General was there, wasn't he? Now, you see a funny letter coming from the presidency with all, the poetic and, trying to be persuasive about how it would be unconstitutional to form a tribunal. And then today, due to that, something has gone down into history. In the Commonwealth jurisprudence, the President of Kenya, who pronounced himself critically through that letter on how unconstitutional it would be to form a tribunal to investigate Justice Tunoi, reversed himself in far less than 24 hours. Not the same issue. So what became constitutional within those 24 hours? Now the thing is this. While I understand about the High Court ruling, that, it made a ruling that Justice Tunoi ought to have retired because he surpassed the constitutional set age of 70 years. Today, of course, we know very well that while that issue is still a matter that is ongoing, it is clear that the matter for which the tribunal is to investigate is a criminal issue.
Thank you. You take him to a criminal court.
This is my perspective on the matter.
Let's hear from Noah. Let's hear from Noah.
The bigger concern is the regularity with which we're seeing the presidency disregard the rule of law, the regularity with which we're seeing the presidency pick and choose which court orders to obey. So when Mheshimiwa here says that, there's a high court order that needs to be respected, why didn't they respect that the same court orders when it came to CFS in Mombasa that said that the godowns should be opened? Why didn't they respect the court orders that say teachers should be paid? Why is it only convenient to respect a certain set of court orders while others are disregarded? And more so to the issue of who is advising the presidency on matters to do with the Constitution and the law. Within the same week, as he did that on this issue of the Rao Tribunal, he also made a pronouncement that 10,000 police officers need to be recruited. While the Constitution of Kenya is clear on this issue, that no person may direct the Inspector General of Police on matters to do with the recruitment, promotion, dismissal, suspension of any police officer. The office of the Inspector General of Police is an independent office and needs to be left to do its work. We're beginning to see a culture, a trend, emerging from the presidency, through which he wants to subvert the Constitution, subvert the rule of law through the back door. How many times has Parliament passed laws, presented them to the presidency for assent? He adds a memorandum that I will only sign this into law if you include this, and reverts it back to Bunge. We're seeing a very dangerous precedent and culture being established under the government of Jubilee, where the president is the sole dictate of what is legal and what is illegal.
All right, Mukwa, do you think the president should change his advisors, given especially the circus that we have seen surrounding this Tunoi case?
That's as good as asking whether the sky is blue. The president has been embarrassed many times. And from what we are told in the public domain, who are his legal advisors? There's Nje Muturi, there's Professor Githu Muigai, there's Abdulkadir Mohammed. One may want to ask himself, or one may begin to wonder, whose interest are they actually serving when they're advising the president? Because an advisor suffers no risk. So when they're giving the president advice, whose interest are they serving? Are they serving their own personal selfish interest? Are they serving party interest? Or are they serving Wanjiko's interest? And a good leader is defined by the company he keeps. For instance, we are told that President Barack Obama is a good guy, but really he's an average man. But he's kept the company of very sharp minds who keep guiding him all the way. So for me, I think the president ought to get a break. I'm not sure whether he's taken a break since he became president, and it takes maybe 3 days at Sagana, and he looks at the list of advisors and he looks at the quality of the advice he's been given. And if necessary, he could actually retain PwC or an audit firm to audit the quality of advice. Because depending on the kind of advice he receives, it dents Kenya's global image. Because people want to come and do business in Kenya. You know, they watch BBC, they watch CNN, and they see the kind of decisions coming from State House. If State House is not consistent in the decision-making process, somebody who wants to invest billions of shillings in Kenya will not be sure whether the money is going to be safe. So for me, I think even before firing those advisors, he needs to relook and review whose interest are they serving. Are they serving his interest as President Muigai Kenyatta, or they are representing special interest groups that want one of their own to join maybe the Judicial Service Commission, or one of their own to become the Chief Justice, or one of their own to run for governor or something like that. I think he needs to look at the selfish interest.
Javas, do you think it's about time he replaced his advisors?
Thing is, I think it may not be of much value for us to launch inquiry to investigate whether the Pope is Catholic. Today, seated here, I think it is clear to us and any observer that the President's advisors, while they are known to be competent people, their competency now is being put to the test and has been found wanting. Because the kind of executive orders, the kind of directives that the President has been given, or proclamations, have in a way tested the patience of Kenyans, and also, in a way, has flown in the face of the Constitution. I think it is proper that, one, the President should not pick or have individuals as his advisors for political reasons or for cronyism. He needs to have individuals who, one, have got the interests of the nation at heart, and secondly, individuals whose work is to think, and advise appropriately. The President of the Republic of Kenya, this day, this moment, needs to expeditiously change his advices.
Okay, let's look at one more thing because time is almost up, and this is the by-elections that are coming up. And to you, Noah Kala, in terms of your confidence in Malindi, how do you see this playing out, and how important is this for your party to win this particular by-election?
Well, for me as Deputy Director of Campaigns for ODM, I'm fairly confident that we're headed to victory in Malindi. Looking at the background of how the by-election arose, it's unfortunate that the presidency sought to recruit members of his cabinet from within opposition ranks, and more so from within the legislature, from within the political class, all things which are found to be contrary to the Constitution.
Next elections is going to get anything coming, yeah. But I think the person who is going to come out of these wounded is going to be the DP. I suspect the DP regrets the day he decided to nominate, or rather to request the President to nominate Mr. Kshs to the cabinet. Because if he loses this election to Mr. Gideon Moi, because the by-election really has got nothing to do with Mr. Sang and Mr. Cheruyot. They actually have no idea what's happening. They don't even know when the polls are going to open. This is going to be the battle between Mr. Gideon Moi and the DP. And my view is, having looked at a crystal ball that I keep in my house, if he loses this by-election, then he needs to call it a wrap, because his political career will come to an end.
Finally, Irungu Kangata, your view on the by-elections, very, very briefly.
No, we are winning. And we are winning by one. There was an opinion poll that was published yesterday. It shows that indeed our candidate is going to win with 63%. In fact, it is wrong. We are going to win with 80% for various reasons. One, there are several regions in this country where things are done by Wazes. And Wazes sat. And they say, this is the guy. If you fail to follow the Wazes, I'm telling you.
All right, Monday is not far. Next week is not far. So we'll definitely replay this clip and see whether you will validate what you have said or it will have been wrong. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on State of the Nation this morning. And that's where we're going to wind up State of the Nation this morning. And I'll just like to thank our guest, Dismas Mukua, who is a political analyst. We have Javas Bigambo, who is a governance expert. Noah Akala, who is a Deputy Director for Campaigns, ODM. And last but not least, Honorable Irungu Kangata, the Member of Parliament for Kiharu. Thank you very much. Well, do stay with us. We've got Morning Express continuing, but we've got some news bulletins coming up at 8 o'clock. And remember, later on, we're going to be talking about the evolution of communication, and especially concentrating more on the telephone. So do stay with us right here on Morning Express.